There's a countdown?
There's not really a countdown, but it does take a second after you click start broadcast to go live. Speaking of which, we are live, so welcome to episode 10 of the World Map Podcast. This is our epic 10th anniversary episode, and by 10th anniversary, I mean our 10-week anniversary episode. Except for we did an episode 0, so technically it's the 11th week. But hey, I got out my best Star Wars button-up shirt with a Death Star and Stormtroopers on it just for this occasion, though. So, joining me, I'm Josh, by the way. For
Hello, Josh.
those of you who haven't been with us for the last 10 episodes or so, where have you been? It's time to get on the World Map train here, the World Map bandwagon, the World Map boat, the World Map Star Destroyer, if you will.
I will.
And yeah, you will. Well, of course, and you've been here since the beginning. The one, the only, your other host, Clark.
Good day, all.
How's it going there, sir? How you doing?
Going pretty good. I've learned to not just only salute, but also give an auditory response because this is actually an audio thing we're doing.
Only took 10 episodes.
Indeed.
And joining us, as almost always, is our other host, Nick.
Hey.
Yeah. How are you this week, Nick?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Living life without an air conditioner. Roughing it.
Nice, yeah. Life without air conditioners, man. What are you thinking? You need to get
I'm
that
living in a
shitty
cave.
satisfied feeling going on in your life.
I'm living in that undisclosed cave location. You know, it's pretty cool in here.
Oh yeah. That's right. You're coming to us from your villain cave in the mountains somewhere. Yeah, we're a very multicultural podcast. We've got the DC, we've got New York City, we've got a mountain somewhere. If we're trying to hit that very multicultural, diverse, white guy, all East Coast audience, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a I don't know. We need a woman on the show or a black guy or something. I don't know, but we'll get that eventually. So I just finished frying some peckers myself, playing a little Bastion, and there was a challenge on there to fry 72 peckers. So I'm feeling pretty good about accomplishing that.
Can you elaborate, please?
No, that's their name for the little birds that attack you.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, could that be misconstrued somehow?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Oh, my bad. Well, I won't want to misconstrue what this show is about. The World Map Podcast, if you haven't listened to the last 10 weeks, is a show about
Meat.
gaming and technology. Meat. It is a show about meat. First and foremost, this show would not be possible without meat. Hot dogs, steaks, you name it. We've probably had an episode about it. But we also talk a little bit, 90% meat, 10% gaming, technology, movies, TV. Nick's a huge fan of Netflix and Ninja Turtles, especially Venus.
Spoiler
And
alert,
so,
Netflix, number one.
right? Your top 10 games,
It's
Netflix.
actually numbers 1 through 5 because of all the different consoles it's on.
I remember when everyone else had the Netflix app and like the original Wii got the Netflix CD to run the disc.
Yeah, I wanted to get that because I'm thinking at some point 20 years from now, people are going to be like, wow, that was on a disc.
Yeah, it's like the AOL of consoles. So we may as well just go ahead and jump right into what we've been playing this week. The new PS Plus games hit this past Tuesday, and I was actually on the road a lot this week. I had to take a little midweek trip. I actually, unfortunately, had an uncle who passed away and had to make about a 5-hour drive back home, which meant I was doing mostly handheld gaming this week as I got time in between trying to keep up with my job remotely and spend some time with family. So I was all PlayStation Vita all the time this week and trying out those new PS Plus games. There are 3 of them that can be played on the Vita, and those are Entwined, Mousecraft, and Geometry Wars 3. I won't spend a lot of time on Geometry Wars 3 because, Clark, you've talked about it on the show a couple of times. Perhaps the funniest thing about it is that you just recently purchased it, and now I got it for free.
You know what? That does not bother me because, as it turns out, that is not cross-buy, and I got the PS4 version.
You're correct. It is not, and so even though I downloaded it on Vita, it is not available on PS Plus to download on PS4. At least it wasn't showing up for me, so I don't think it is.
It's not. I've tried.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? It's a great Vita game, and just like Resogun's fun on Vita, and just like Super Stardust is fun on Vita, Geometry Wars 3, well, you know, also fun on Vita. I wasn't like totally into it. I mean, I think it should be called Shape Wars instead of Geometry Wars because you're basically just like a triangle shooting squares flying around on some other shape, and there's really no geometry involved in this game. So a little disappointing there for me. I was hoping to test my mathematical skills a bit. But overall, in all seriousness, I thought Geometry Wars 3 is an okay shooter, but I still prefer Resogun probably over it. And beyond that, a lot of folks haven't played Super Stardust Delta on the PS Vita. That's actually my favorite shooter of that style that I've played in a long time. And Geometry Wars, I'd heard, this is my first time playing it. I'd heard a lot about the first two, and a lot of people played them back in the day, and I just never got around to it. But my first foray into that realm, it wasn't something that I hated. I didn't love it, but it's just one of those things that I'll play once in a while when I want to pick something up for 5 minutes and do a stage. But speaking of Resogun, there's been some new content for that title with the Heroes and the Defenders expansions, and I believe both of you have a little experience there. Nick, you've even, for our live viewers, I think they can see your Resogun title screen behind you there on your TV.
A little faded due to light, exposure. It's back there.
So how's that expansion going?
Clark, you want to go ahead and start us off since we both played together? We have the
same basically, well, first off, I will say that I agree with JD. I do, even though I like me some Geometry Wars, I like Resogun a lot better. And these expansions have actually been out for a bit of time already, but I finally decided to purchase them and play them because Nick reminded me that it existed. And wow, boy, it's pretty fun. There are some new modes, one of which is called Commando, and it is very different than the rest of Resogun because you know how in Resogun you're a ship and you're saving these humans? Well, in Commando, you're one of the humans and you just have this machine gun and you can't fly around, you're just actually walking around on the bottom of the stage.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they added that. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and basically there are just all these ships and meteors and everything coming down to try to destroy your house. And I don't know what kind of engineer would be able to house there. Maybe Nick would be able to help us out a little more with why that happened. But you're basically trying to stop meteors and everything from destroying this house. And
it's the best place to build a house if you're harvesting asteroids and meteors.
There's
probably a lot of good minerals in those.
Yeah. So, but the controls other than that are pretty much exactly the same, and it reminds me a lot of I think what was it called on the Atari, like Missile Defense or Missile Command?
Yeah, Missile
One of those
Command.
kind of games.
Sure.
Yeah, except
that's exactly what I was thinking of as you were describing that.
Yeah, think Missile Command, but with a lot more happening and a much faster pace. And going along with that, there's actually a versus mode where it is you versus another human player. You're both the little commando guys, and you're shooting at each other, but there's also this big giant stick of dynamite that you got to grab, and you can destroy the enemy's base with it. And it's completely non-Resogun-like, but at the same time, it's very fun simply because you're playing it within Resogun. It's like a nice little distraction from the main game.
But there's two ways to win in that mode. There's two ways to win. You can either blow up the enemy's base with that dynamite, or you can actually kill the enemy by shooting them enough times, which I didn't think actually won the game. I thought that slowed him down. But sure enough, Clark shot me enough to cause me to lose as I tried to blow up his base.
Yeah. See, pro tip, look at the little tips that show up before the game starts, because they told me that I can do that.
I didn't get to that tip.
They really should have something that flashes up that tells you as a tip to look at the tips.
That should be the first tip.
That should be the first
Just the tip.
Also, the commando mode has it, in my opinion, I don't know if Clark feels the same way, the best weapon in the game.
Yes.
Something called the machine gun, which is pretty much
minigun, I thought.
You just launch so much. You basically clear the screen with just bullets. You become the enemy in terms of bullet count and just wipe everything out. Though it only lasts for a few seconds, it's probably the most enjoyable weapon in almost any of those types of shooters I've ever used. I don't know if Clark agrees or not.
So, any other notable things about these expansions that folks should know about going in?
Well, since Clark covered the last expansion, there's another game. There were 4 new game modes added, and 2 of them, Survivor, it's pretty much self-explanatory, so we really don't need to go too much into that. You just survive as long as you can. But the 2 other notable modes are Protector mode and Demolition mode. And I'll go ahead and tell a little bit about Demolition mode.
I forgot about that one.
In Demolition mode, it looks like you're playing typical Resogun, but the gameplay style is far away from Resogun in terms of like combat as you can get. You can't shoot. All you have is this shield bubble that recharges, and you've got these little ball meteors. You have to kind of launch. Here's your geometry, JD, or Josh. You launch these balls. It slows down time for a few.
Oh no, I think Nick froze.
Whoa.
He's got a really nice like frozen expression on his face there though.
I think he's just trying to build the suspense.
Oh wait, he seems to be moving again though. Did your mountain hideout take an attack?
It might have. Yeah. I had to dig a little deeper this week.
So you were talking about the geometry of launching the meteors from the shield?
Yeah. So you actually have to try to pick, the angle you're going to shoot them at. It gives you a little red arrow indicator, and try to take out as much, ships and just debris as you can to get a higher score and get more. You can get more and more of these little meteors you can launch, to where it gets pretty insane when you get about 5 or 6 on the screen, because you have just massive flying meteorites everywhere that you have to worry about dodging, even though they're what's keeping you alive at the same time. It's a very unique game mode in the respect that you can't shoot. It basically takes the bullet shooter and takes the bullets out of your end and turns it into a dodge game. You just strictly dodge.
Dodgeball.
What, dodgeball?
Dive.
Here's the real question. Do you guys think that the enemy ships in Resogun kind of look like little pigs? For some, I can kind of see it, right?
It depends on the ship, maybe.
On the ship, some of them look like spiders. A little hopping spider.
Indeed. So Nick, did you have some additional Elder Scrolls Online stories to tell us this week? You had some fun tales of your adventures of no fast travel and trekking hours across a battlefield to meet your party last week.
Oh yeah, well I've pretty much learned to just, pro tip here, grab every waypoint you see as you travel across the map. That way you can teleport to anywhere on the map at pretty much any given time. As long as your pockets are deep enough to pay for the price, which it's normally worth it. But yeah, no, I recently got into crafting, and I found out a pretty cheap little way to level up blacksmithing like ridiculously fast. Most crafting, you have to go out and just harvest a bunch of craft, and then probably just dismantle it and just go do it again. But I've determined with blacksmithing, you can just rob the city blind of all of its swords and weapons and deconstruct all of your stolen gear. Those levels straight up. And the best part is, when you deconstruct the gear, the deconstructed fragments don't count as stolen equipment. So you take your stolen gear and you make it legit gear, and then you can recraft gear from your stolen, parts. And it's not stolen anymore. So if a guard catches you, you're like, "Oh, I'll pay the fine." And he's like, "I gotta take all your stolen gear." Joke's on him. It's not stolen anymore.
That's the video game version of filing off serial numbers.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's pretty entertaining, especially sometimes when you accidentally get caught. You're just like, "Oh, I've been caught." So you just openly rob the place blind instead of trying to sneak around. And then I'm a Nightblade, so I basically see all these pack guards that if they see you, they'll basically just take all your money, take all your gear, and if you're high enough on the the wanted list, they'll just kill you on the spot. But I don't ever let it get that high. So I'm a Nightblade, so I basically, if I see him, I just start cloaking. I can cloak for 2 seconds, but I can use it like 8 times. So I've got effectively 16 seconds of cloaking. So I cloak and run, and I just run past them all, deconstruct all of that gear, and just because I don't feel like walking halfway across the map to pay the fine to be an outstanding citizen again, I normally just run into a pack guard and pay it at him because I've already gotten rid of all the stolen gear. It's pretty entertaining.
When you said you got into crafting, I was kind of hoping you'd opened an Etsy store.
What?
An Etsy store, so you could sell all your crafts that you're making.
Maybe that's the next step.
Awesome. So back to PS Plus on the Vita. I mentioned I also tried Entwined and Mousecraft. I will spend almost no time talking about Mousecraft. Maybe it's the type of game that's for certain people. And typically I like puzzle-y type games. I mean, there have been puzzle-ish games on the Vita that I've enjoyed a ton, like Dokuro, or also what's the one with the clones, A Clone in the Dark? Those games.
Great ending, by the way, to that game.
Indeed. So really like those games. This game is more about the mice are gonna go along a predetermined path from left to right, and you have to kind of drop boxes and things like that in their path to help them climb up to where they need to be to get to the end. It may get more complex as you go further along, as puzzle games tend to do, but it started out way too slow and way too hand-holdy in the beginning, and it felt like the tutorial part of the puzzle game that you normally have was just very prolonged, and I just didn't feel like it was going to evolve to the point where it was something that was going to hold my attention. So Mousecraft, not really for me. Entwined, on the other hand, is a game that I've already beaten. You could probably beat this game in just a few hours. There is a challenge mode and some things that actually add a much longer amount of gameplay to it, but to play through the core 9 or so chapters in the game doesn't take very long. I would estimate each one can take anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 minutes depending on your skill level. It's a game where the level really actually depends on your skill level because you're flying through various colored portals, we'll call them, for lack of a better term, on the screen. And the more that you can hit in succession without making a mistake, the faster you're going to beat the level because you're kind of trying to build up a bar with this sort of power that you get from flying through these things and collecting various gems. I'm not quite sure what the story is about in Entwined. I think it's basically that a Magikarp and a...
Like the Pokemon?
Yeah, I think it's Magikarp. I think it's Magikarp and one of the legendary bird Pokemon are in love and they're trying to evolve into their final forms, but instead at the end of each level they just kind of get it on a lot and turn into a dragon together, and then they fly around and poop out rainbows to create a portal to die and then be reincarnated again as another Magikarp and a different bird.
If you're needing the names of these birds, I can give them. I'm pretty...
Well, what's the one that's kind of a fire type?
Moltres.
Yeah, okay. So...
Or Ho-Oh, depending on what gen you're doing.
Yeah, so I think that's the Pokemon. I didn't even know this was a Pokemon game until I started playing it. And in fact, officially, it may not be. Um, but really, weird concept, and really all you're just doing is collecting colors and trying not to make a mistake in flying through different color patterns, so that at the end you can turn into a dragon and go to the next level. And you just do this like 9 times, and then the game is over. And I think maybe at the end, officially, either the two characters become one, or they fall in love, or something. Um, Again, it's really weird and crazy. Uh, from a gameplay standpoint, I found it to be a little bit not so great because you really only have two controls in the game: left stick, right stick, and you are. So anybody listening to the podcast is going to be like, these guys are freaking crazy because I just bust out laughing. I got to share this. So Clark sends me a message that says, "Distraction, don't be distracted." And of course I was. But yeah, so you're using your left stick and your right stick, and you have to, in order to be able to move. So you're moving each character in a half circle on the screen to complete the 360 degrees. So you're moving left stick and right stick as far to the outside as you can, and then kind of wiggling them up and down in half circles to move your characters around the outside of the screen. If you don't hold the sticks all the way out to the outside, it actually tells you to do that. If you don't do that, you're not going to have enough control to kind of pull off some of the more intricate moves in the game. What this results in, though, is that you're constantly holding your thumbs like pushing apart from each other like this, and I'm kind of wiggling my hands in the air for those listening to the audio podcast. But at the end of a level, man, my hands were like numb from playing this game, which is not something that I encounter a lot. But man, the controls were horrible. And then from a level design standpoint, the levels are all very similar. I mean, if you think about the fact that you have 180 degrees on each side of the screen with each character, and you're flying through portals and within each character's semicircle, there's only a predetermined amount of things that you can put on the screen in different pattern combinations, right? You're going to eventually run out because you have just like limited space in that 180 degree arc to put different colors on. And so the levels kind of repeat themselves a lot, and you're just doing a lot of the exact same move patterns pretty often in the game. So it gets a little boring toward the end. But it does test your skills a little bit because you have to, on the right screen, perhaps be going up and up, down, a little into the left to follow the pattern. And on the left screen, there's maybe a completely different pattern going on that you have to fly through. And so it's kind of like the rub your tummy, pat your head thing, where your left hand is trying to do one thing directionally and your right hand is trying to do a different thing directionally. And that's where the really interesting part of this game comes into play, is teaching yourself to be able to operate independently of each other with your hands like that. Because we're used to really doing movement with the left hand and kind of doing that y-axis thing with the right hand, whereas this is both hands are controlling movement in a way. So it's very different. So I think that's all that we've been playing this week. So I suppose we can move on and talk a little bit about our topic of the week this week.
I think we might be able to, if you're okay with that, Nick. I know he's the boss, so.
It's true.
Let me think about it. I'll allow it.
Excellent. So before we dive in too deep into talking a little bit about our big topic for this week, I did think I should probably provide an update since I ranted like crazy last week about the troubles I was having with PSN. Just a really quick update. Listen to last week's show if you want the full details, but basically my PSN account was hacked. Somebody spent like $300 downloading, or not even downloading, but purchasing games on the PSN store. I caught it. I shut down my credit card, changed all my security and payment info, blah, blah, blah. But then like Sony was giving me a really hard time when I was on the online chat about giving me a refund, essentially saying that the only way they would give me a refund is if I let them ban my PSN account, which was like totally crazy and unacceptable, and like just not something I wanted to do. I felt like so held hostage by Sony, and I was like pretty angry about it. But then I got on the phone on last Monday, I guess it was, with phone support for PlayStation. And by the way, have you guys ever called PlayStation support?
Yes.
40-minute wait time.
I did not have that when I called.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I still think they never really put anything out publicly, but I still wonder, given that long wait time after the 4th of July weekend, if I wasn't the only one who had this happen to me, maybe, especially knowing that that Friday morning PSN had been down for a little while. I don't know. They never released any news publicly about that. But, yeah, really long wait time when I called. And I had to be on the phone for quite some time with the guy that I got while he went back and forth talking to his manager or whatever. But end of the day, long story short, they did finally agree to refund my money. They're not going to ban my PSN account. Obviously, they revoked the games from my account that had been purchased, which I had never started downloading them anyway because they weren't games I wanted. And obviously, I wanted to show them that it wasn't me who purchased them. And I got an email from Sony actually, and it was kind of this formal, like very legally driven type email, basically saying like, this is a one-time thing that we only do on a case-by-case basis for people, one time only. We'll never do this again for you, kind of thing. Whatever. So I got it resolved. I'm getting the money refunded to me from Sony. Man, it was kind of a pain to do, and I wish the chat and phone people, like, I don't know why they had different ways of helping me and they weren't on the same page, but I'm glad that PlayStation support came through in the end and was able to help me out with that.
That's cool. Yeah, I've learned if they don't help you out one way, just keep trying to contact them, and then somebody will actually be helpful.
It's sad, but that seems to be the way that things work. You eventually will find the helpful person.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of extra time this week. We're not going to have any news segment really. It's just been San Diego Comic-Con has been going on, but I feel like that's been more excitement about just around things that we already knew were happening. There's not like a lot of news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con so much. So it's been kind of slow. So we've been talking about for the last few weeks, we want to do this concept of talking about our top 10 video games, the best video games of all time, and have the three of us debate our lists. And so since we had a few minutes today, I want to run down through my list and see what you guys say, and we'll keep doing these on future shows, and I think these will be a lot of fun. So without any further ado, I will jump right into my top 10 list right now.
Are you going from 1 to 10, or are you going reverse order like?
Well, I think the suspense would be killed if I started at 1, right? So I should probably start at the bottom.
I mean, you started with episode 1 for Star Wars. That kills the suspense, too. So I thought you were that kind of guy.
Oh, man. Okay, you got me there. That's true. All right. Well, actually, here, I'm not going to start at 1 or 10. I'm going to start at honorable mention.
Whoa. Right.
Yeah, because I narrowed this list down. I had done, if anybody has poked around on my website, joshuadelong.com, you can find probably my most recent top 10 games of all time blog post that I wrote a few years back. What I did was I pulled that list, killed the stuff that I was like, what was I thinking?
And Wii Fit.
There's no Wii Fit. I put some new stuff on the list, and I let it rest for a day. I opened it back up, and I said, okay. The context of this list is, I went through after I thought I was done, and I said, these are definitely my top 10, but which of these games would I rather play? If I had to choose one of these games to play right now, would I rather play 3 or 2? And I kind of shuffled them around in that way. And so what that resulted in was some things got killed because they were older games that just don't hold up. Some things moved up because they are retro games that certainly still hold up and would still be fun, and I would love to go play them. But at the end of all of it, I had my 10, but I didn't have one game included that I feel is a really important game for me. that I'm actually playing through again for like the third time right now. So my honorable mention is Bastion by Supergiant Games.
Mm.
And I'm guessing very few people have actually played Bastion. I don't know. Have either of you played this game?
I have not played it, but I have seen it and I wanted to play it. Basically, I didn't really have any consoles up until, well, now that could play it. Like when it was on the 360, by the time it was on there, like my 360 was pretty much shot, and I never got a new power cord. So
Yeah, and I played it for the first time too on Xbox Live Arcade. It is on every platform now. It's on iOS. If someone hasn't played Bastion, gotta play this game. It has RPG elements. It's got adventure elements. It's got amazing art style that's like a little bit retro-y. There are minor platforming elements in a couple places. It's got shooter elements in a way. It's got isometric kind of RPG things going on. You get to do a lot of building and customizing and crafting, and it has that neat. I don't know if anybody played Transistor, so this was Greg Kasavin's first game before Transistor, but it has that same thing where in Transistor you could turn add-ons on to make the game more challenging and get more experience, so you were constantly gambling between the two. Bastion actually created that system first. Just a lot of, and then the overall thing that I think everybody knows about Bastion is the story is somewhat interesting, but what makes it great is that it has a narrator. So everything you do in this game is narrated, including the stuff that's scripted as you're walking along and like telling you the story of the game. But then there's kind of like stuff that seems less scripted. So if you walk off the edge of a level, you know, the narrator will be like, the kid, he didn't see that one coming, and you know they'll like actually kind of like poke fun at you a little bit while they're narrating. So Bastion, I'll move on, but highly recommend that game. Had to give it an honorable mention, but my actual number 10.
quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may. I played Transistor and liked it a lot. But if Transistor is not in your top 10, how much better than this is Transistor?
Transistor is not in my top 10, and I would say that Bastion is a better game than Transistor. I really like and appreciate some of the things that Transistor tried to do. The kind of like pause time RPG battle system was very fun, very unique. But I prefer the kind of just live like adventure game RPG action of Bastion. And I also just think that having that narrator and kind of having that art style that's similar to Transistor, but to me, Transistor felt like it was zoomed out a little too much, and you didn't get to see a lot of the great detail and the Supergiant puts into their art. And Bastion really delivers on that. And it just feels like a more cohesive game to me than Transistor. Transistor felt a little like it overstayed its welcome towards the end for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so moving on then, number 10, Far Cry 3. I like seeing the reactions on your faces because I think I saw Nick kind of like shaking his head a little bit. I saw Clark kind of smile like, I don't know about that one.
Well, when I heard the word Far Cry 3, or when I heard you say that, I was thinking,
that's actually 3 words, by the way.
Well, yeah, you don't have to bring that up, guy. Anyway, I just started laughing because it's like I knew that was going to be on the list somewhere. With as much as you talked about it, every time you mentioned Far Cry 4.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you know, I did just recently finish Far Cry 4. Actually, platinum that game, which was a pain in the ass. But Far Cry 3 actually snuck onto my top 10 list as one of the more recent games on there. Purely for 2 reasons. Story, number 1. Story is a huge thing for me in gaming. It's why I got into gaming and stuck with gaming, because I love really great storytelling, and whenever I get to control some of the impact and make some of the decisions of how that story plays out, even better. Best feeling in the world. Far Cry 3 had a great story that had some plot twists in it. It had good characters. It was much more colorful than some of the other Far Cry games. It was just a lot of fun, really good. And the other reason that I really like Far Cry 3 is because of the system where you take down the forts and the outposts or whatever, which every Far Cry game has. But I really feel like even Far Cry 4 didn't nail it in the same way that Far Cry 3 did. The level design was such that every outpost was so just intricately different from the other one, and how you should approach it especially if you're gonna go in from a stealth perspective. And the enemy placement it looked random. The AI was so good. It didn't look like they put enemies close enough together for you to be able to do these like crazy chain combo kills. And so it had this really good like kind of rush to it when you would pull those chain like combo kills off, where you're just like stealth from enemy to enemy in one fluid motion, and you take out the entire outpost in one fluid motion. And the other Far Cry games didn't have that, and no other game that I have played has had that. So that's why Far Cry 3 sneaks in. Number 9 on my list, Shadow Complex. I'm watching the facial reactions again.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, no, really? Clark, do you know Shadow Complex?
That was a... gosh. I've heard Shadow Complex 2. I don't know much about Part 1.
This is great. I love that my list has games that a lot of people maybe haven't played and that you guys haven't played, because I feel like it's a chance to share some things that you guys might enjoy as well as the listeners. But also this means when you guys share your list with me, it's going to be very different. So Shadow Complex is a modern-day Super Metroid game. And if you are a fan of Super Metroid and you haven't played Shadow Complex, I'll tell you right now, Super Metroid's not on this list and Shadow Complex is. And the reason is that it takes all of those concepts and improves on them in a modern-day, kind of more futuristic Orson Scott Card style setting. It's actually based on some books that Orson Scott Card has written, and it's just got that great, where you come to an area and there are obviously places you're going to have to come back to later. What I like about Shadow Complex that I hate about some of the older Metroid games is they involve so much backtracking and remembering where to go for things. Shadow Complex is designed in such a way that when you get the items that you needed in some place you couldn't access, it actually, through the mission structure, guides you back to those places just in a way that feels very organic. And it's like you stumble upon the same area, but maybe from a higher up position in the world. It's got this very nice open world kind of feel to it, and the game just leads you to all the right places at the right time and kind of makes you feel really smart while you're playing it. And all of the add-ons that you can get for your uniform and for your weapons are very fun. There's some really, really cool boss battles, and the thing that this game also has that Metroid games don't have in this like 2.5D style is really good shooting mechanics and cover-based kind of gameplay. And so it just packages everything up really nicely. I don't actually know if you can play this game on anything other than 360, though. I mean, it was a summer arcade game.
Well, I don't know. Maybe on the Xbox One, now that they announced the backwards compatibility.
Yeah, I really hope so. And maybe there's an Xbox One like port that's been brought over. Probably not, though. And this wasn't a retail game on it that you can go get on a disc. Maybe it's available on like Xbox games on Windows or something. Actually, I should go and look sometime. But if there's a way you can get your hands on Shadow Complex, absolutely do it. Play it. So number 8 on my list is Final Fantasy.
Which one?
7.
Ah, whoa! What a surprise!
Never would have guessed.
we talked so much about this game when Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced at E3. So I don't think I have to say a lot more about it. It's my favorite Final Fantasy game. It's the only one on my list. And I played it at a time where I was just so into story-driven games, and it has a great story. Not to mention the whole materia system.
Yes,
is probably my favorite ever RPG mechanic in terms of customizing weapons and things.
Interestingly, Cloud was usually my healer.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly you could play the game that way. Yeah, I mean, this game just had a lot of things that hadn't been done before at the time. It built in a lot of cool mini games. There was a lot of content there. So, is 7? Is it even your favorite Final Fantasy game for either of you?
Um, I would have to say, see, I don't know, like, going back and actually playing again the current versions that are out, I would say 6 is probably, or 3 if you aren't familiar with the fact that the 3 in the US is actually 6 in Japan. That one would be my favorite, but based on how I felt when I first played it and all that, and all the nice nostalgic feelings, etc., I'd say 7. Which one is my favorite overall? I don't know of those two.
I would agree with Clark there for a little bit. Final Fantasy 3 or 6 is probably my favorite currently. I just really like that Super Nintendo kind of style. But initially playing through, I think Final Fantasy 9 was my favorite. I liked the kind of fantasy-style world 9 brought. 7 was a close second for me, and I do like most of 7's characters better. But the overall world, I liked 9 better.
Oh, interesting thing with Final Fantasy VII. You know Red 13, how when you go to his village, and his actual name was, I think, what was it, Nanaki?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Or something? I played through that game again, and instead of naming him Red 13, I named him from the beginning Nanaki.
Oh.
Any of the dialogue later on, it's like, Nanaki, your name is Nanaki? It's like, what's going on here?
Count for that. It'd be cool if there was a trophy for doing that in the remake.
Yeah, no, because I'd have to play the game twice. Because I have to play at least once with the default names.
All right, so I'll move on then. So far we've talked about games that are probably associated mostly with Xbox and original PlayStation. Number 7 on my list is a PC game of yesteryear called Nox.
Yes.
Yeah. I love Nox so much. I recently downloaded it on GOG. I haven't actually fired it back up yet, but I had to own that game again after having it on the original like disc-based version on my probably first or second PC ever back in the day. Nox is a game, I'll say right now, Diablo, there's no Diablo game on my top 10 list, but Nox makes the cut because it, to me, does some things very well that the Diablo games were never able to do. Yeah, Diablo 3 is awesome. I played through it on 360 a while back. But at the time Nox came out, it had cutscenes that were actually on par with Blizzard's. It had a story that was way better than Diablo's. And it had this combat system that blew Diablo out of the water, where you're doing a lot of clicking, especially in the older Diablo games. Nox kind of incorporated that whole like brawler thing that you get with something, say like even like Heroes of the Storm, where you have a button on the keyboard that makes your hero rush into an enemy and kind of like charge them, or shoot a grappling hook at them and pull them towards them, and like all these kind of special moves, whereas like a lot of the Diablo skills were very samey back in the day, and it's like, oh, it's just a different kind of area of effect or fireball spell that this person has versus this person, or different passive spell. But Nox had a lot of like action-oriented spells. It had a lot of really cool visualizations of how your armor and things appeared before that was even a thing. Like people had even really started making your characters reflect the armor. They always looked like the same art regardless of what you were wearing in your inventory. Nox changed that a little bit. And then even beyond the main campaign, something that kept me playing for years was Nox had a PvP multiplayer mode that was awesome to die for. I've never played anything else like it since, where you're doing the level design was just amazing. You're in these like houses and these villages, you're in these castles, and you've got all these really cool special items and portals and different things, and just fighting other people in that multiplayer was sweet. It was great. I love Nox.
I also thought the art style was better than in Diablo. Diablo was, for the most part, pretty dark everywhere. Nox had well, I mean, there were dark areas, but of course a lot of the environments were more colorful. The spells and the particle effects, if you can call them that, I mean, were, in my opinion, prettier. And, I'm not a guy that thinks graphics over gameplay, certainly, but if you have the gameplay, it never hurts to have the looks to go with it.
Yeah, I think what it is about Nox's graphics were that they stood out as very different during a time when there were a lot of games like it that weren't doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so number 6 on my list is the first Mario game on my list. Anybody want to wager a guess which Mario game it is?
Super Mario World?
It is
Mario
Super Mario World. It is
Mario Sunshine.
It is not Sunshine. Sunshine is the most horrible Mario game of all time.
That would be Hotel Mario, good sir.
Oh, yes.
Mario Teaches Typing is better than Sunshine.
You, sir, are mistaken.
Yeah, so Super Mario World is the number 6 on my list. It is my favorite platformer Mario, hands down. I mean, you got introduced to Yoshi. It was the pack-in for Super Nintendo, so it's like you get a Super Nintendo and you're playing Super Mario World, and it's like you got Yoshi and you're in this new environment with these islands and things that you hadn't really seen, very different from the Mushroom Kingdom settings of the NES games, and you had the feather and the cape, and then this game also introduced, I know like Mario 3 had a little bit of the hidden world type stuff and the little secrets with the whistles and different things, but Super Mario World took that to a whole new level with the hidden pathing you could get for different exits from the ghost houses, obviously getting the Star Road, and then beyond the Star Road, those really difficult like extra levels you could get.
Yeah.
The boss battles were fun. I mean, Super Mario World, to me, they've not made a better platformer Mario ever, and I don't know if they ever will.
I will make one when Mario Maker comes out.
I'll help. Josh,
I'll look forward to playing that.
You could help. Oh wait, you're missing the proper hardware.
Yeah. Well, hey man, Mario Maker 2 on NX, I'm all over it. I'm not gonna sit out the next round. I just want to punish Nintendo this round because I felt so screwed by the Wii.
The question is,
Right.
do you ever get a 100 on that title screen on your Super Mario World file? 100?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Oh, did you? I didn't think that was possible.
I got whatever the most completed percentage possible was. I know.
96. Why did they stop it at 96?
I don't know why they would do that. Yeah, I know. I remember very definitively getting through everything in the Star Road, and then taking like 2 years before I finished the. What were the extra levels like in that kind of black screen?
Where it goes around. Yeah, I forget what it's called. I think it was just called Special.
That's what it says on the top of the screen, just special.
Yeah, just special. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember beating Star Road and then getting the special levels, and it probably took me like 2 years to finally beat all the special levels.
And then, like, when you beat those, it makes the whole rest of the game look weird. But
yes, from the title screen on, even, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So, number 5 on my list, I don't know that this will be surprising to you guys, because you know I'm a fan of this series. A Mass Effect game. But which one? Which Mass Effect game?
3 with the original ending.
Yes. That's
3 with none of the endings is not on the list. 3 with any of the endings is no. Mass Effect 3 doesn't come close to my top 10 list, but Mass Effect 2 is right there sitting at number 5. Because it took everything that I loved about Mass Effect 1, those RPG elements, that really awesome. I mean, Mass Effect had a great, awesome story until the third one when it all went to hell. But it continued what was a really compelling story. And the thing that I liked most, the reason Mass Effect 2 edges out Mass Effect 1 for me, is because it's a very character-driven game, and I really love it when the story is character-driven and there's a lot of character development. And if you go on all those like loyalty quests for all the various characters that you can get in your party in the game, you learn a lot about each of them, and the game feels very, very different. And also the combat was just honed so well from 1 to 2 for Mass Effect. It's kind of like the first game was a bit of an experiment, and then once that really, really took off and had this huge fan base, they got to really just blow it up and make it, like, tweak it just the right amount of polish for Mass Effect 2. Yeah, the final boss is really cheesy and kind of lame, whatever. But overall, Mass Effect 2 to me is just one of the best third-person shooters and RPGs ever made because of how character-driven that game is. I absolutely love it. Do you guys have a favorite in the Mass Effect series, or you kind of like backed off for Mass Effect?
It's pretty much. I mean, you pretty much got it down.
Yeah, the only thing I liked better in the first one that they left out of 2 was I liked in the first one that you could land on planets and like driving the Mako. A lot of people didn't like the Mako and like driving around, gathering minerals and things like on the surface of the planets. But I much preferred that to just the little scanning mini game that they put in Mass Effect 2. So, all right. So number 4, we're moving right up the list. Number 4 is an Elder Scrolls game. It is not Elder Scrolls Online, but it is Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. And this is a relatively new inclusion into my top 10 list because Skyrim. I spent 80 to 100 hours in Skyrim. I did basically everything that you can do in that game, and it takes a really long time. But what I really loved about Skyrim, yeah, it had some bugs. Yeah, it wasn't perfect from a technical perspective, but it was really just beautiful, and you would see these beautiful vistas, and just about 99% of the time when you saw those, you could actually go to the place that you saw. If you could get on your horse or walk or whatever, fast travel in some scenarios. But you could go to anywhere that you see in that game and do things in just about any order. And that like feeling of exploration and freedom, and like even down in some of the dungeons, I felt as though I was Indiana Jones, getting deeper and deeper into some of these dungeons, and then there'd be like a random wizard or something to fight down there, and it would go from this very slow, methodical exploration game to a very fast-paced, hardcore RPG fighting game. And so that ebb and flow of Skyrim was really fun to me. And then just stumbling upon an entrance in a mountain somewhere to a dwarven castle built under the ground that would take me 3 to 4 hours to explore all of its little corners. And what kind of items would I find down there, and all those sorts of things. And it had dragons. So Skyrim to me is a really special game that we've had in the last few years. So that's numbers honorable mention through 4. I think that's a pretty decent mix of retro compared to some more modern things. Mm-hmm. My top 3 games I think would all be considered pretty retro. Definitely 3 and 2. Number 1, I guess number 1's kind of the same time period. So I'm not going quite as far back as like Atari or 8-bit era, but thinking more Super Nintendo era, especially here with number 3, which is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Which I think you all knew that would be on my list somewhere. You might have thought that would be my number 1, actually.
I mean, based on the history of your writing, that's what I would guess.
Yeah. So, Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. To me, the best Zelda game. I don't. Are you guys? Where do you fall? Are you Link to the Past, Ocarina guys? I can't imagine you'd be not one of those two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can. I mean, it's an entirely separate list just to talk about like our top 5 or 10 Zelda games.
Sure.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I guess. Little spoiler alert for future conversations. That is my favorite Zelda game. And obviously there's going to be one of those on my list. But where on my list, nobody knows.
I'm going to have to agree as well. Link to the Past, ever since I've played it, has been... that game just provided the most enjoyment of any Zelda game I've ever played. It's always been near and dear to my gaming heart. Link to the Past. It basically took everything that you liked about the original Zelda and just fixed everything. It was near perfect, that game, and I've played the crap. I'm one of them nerds.
So far as to say A Link to the Past is perfect. It is a perfect game. I love Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past so much. I recently played, the 3DS Link Between Worlds that came out, which is a combination sequel remake for A Link to the Past, and I would say that is also a very good game, but it doesn't capture, because the dungeons aren't quite as long and complex and some other reasons, it doesn't capture what A Link to the Past did for me. I have played start to finish 100%ed Link to the Past probably 10 times in my life.
Yeah, that's one of those.
I typically play Link to the Past every other year, to be honest. Clark knows. I play that game all the time. I can beat that game in 6 or 7 minutes through a unique set of glitches that puts me in the wall, and I've mapped the grid out to walk between the rooms to go straight to Ganon. Or not. Actually, I walk right by Ganon and enter right into the Triforce room, and I just grab it.
Nice.
So it's less fun that way.
I can imagine it is. No, I like to just fire it up, do the 3 pendants, go grab the Master Sword, and then take a little break, and then come back to it like a week later and beat all the Dark World dungeons. It's just I can tell you every step of that game in the back of my mind.
What I find interesting.
That's the problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
I was going to say, that's the problem with, in my opinion, Ocarina of Time. Link to the Past, doing the first 3 little things to get those pendants, was fun. In Ocarina of Time, as a kid, getting those 3 little stones was fun the first time, and then it's terrible.
Nick, that is just your curse. You know what? Whenever we played Ocarina of Time, Nick would always do the end portion of dungeons for some reason. He would never pick up the piece of heart.
I like the challenge.
And I'm halfway through the game, and I'm like, why do I have such a small amount of hearts? I would think I would have more than this by now. And so I went back and
whatever. They made me play the water dungeon in that game, and I am one of the only people I know that can complete that water dungeon on memory using the red tunic. You do have to switch to the blue tunic one or 2 times. I think it's only once to double your amount of air, and then switch back to the red, because that's how much I've played it. Because nobody likes the water dungeon for some reason.
But Link to the Past though. What's interesting about that game, I think anybody who played it, it would be high on their list, at least if they're around our age, because it's a great game. You can play it now, solid game mechanics and everything. It's just a great game, hands down. But back when it came out, where it was like one of the first to do what it did, especially on consoles, and just the sheer size of it at the time and everything, it's like a perfect mix of nostalgia and actually that nostalgia holding up even till today.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's why it's so high on my list, because I mentioned, I went through and I said, would I actually have fun playing this game now? Is this a game I would actually want to pick up and play and have fun with? And the answer is yes. For A Link to the Past, any day of the week, I'll pick it up.
Who can't have fun with those medallions?
Oh yeah, totally. The one with the fire circles you and comes out from you, so fun. It's awesome. So all right, so I'll move on to the runner-up here, to number 2 on my best games of all time list. I mentioned before that Super Mario World coming in at number 6 was my only Mario platformer, which means,
I know where this is going.
Which means number 2 has to be a Mario game that's not a platformer.
Mario Party, got it.
Mario Party is not on the list and will never be anywhere near my list. No version of it. Nick, will you have a better guess than that?
I'm going to go ahead and say probably one of the best RPGs, certainly the best Mario RPG, what I'm saying. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that, because I'm pretty sure I've nailed it right there.
By saying the best Mario RPG, well, you would be right, sir. Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars on Super Nintendo. And I'm a little surprised at myself that this edged out A Link to the Past. But when I started thinking about, which one of those games would I have more fun playing right now? And maybe it's just because I've played Link to the Past so many times. I've played Super Mario RPG a lot, but not as many. So maybe it would just feel fresher. But then I started thinking, like, It just has such a fun story, some really like great cheesy lines in there. It's got a lot of color. The RPG battle system is turn-based, but it's not your typical turn-based, so it doesn't get boring. You have that ability to kind of boost your attacks and defend from attacks if you can get your button presses down just right. And you get to customize your party, which was one of the first RPGs I ever played that allowed so much party customization for accessories and weapons and armor and who can be in your party. And you can play as Bowser. You can put Bowser in your party as a good guy. Bowser is not the villain of this game. I think this was the first game, Super Mario Bros. 2 aside, which isn't even a real Mario game. I think this was the first Mario game I played where Bowser was not the main villain. And just so many just memorable, quirky moments that you will not find in any other Mario game. You have Geno, who is one of the coolest characters ever. I don't know why Nintendo hasn't put him in anything else. I can't for the life of me think why Geno had just disappeared, because he's awesome.
Put him in Smash.
What? Yeah, put him in Smash. God, he would wipe the floor with everybody. And you've got a lot of other characters in that game too that people don't know about. A lot of people don't know about Geno. A lot of people, like you said, Mallow, don't know about Mallow. Just some worlds. I mean, you leave the Mushroom Kingdom and go to these really cool worlds with these awesome bosses, just all these cool people that you don't see in other Mario games. And then you have like weird parody things that parody the time period in which this game took place, like the Axum Rangers, which are this total parody of the Power Rangers that you have to fight in the game. One of the toughest battles in any RPG, beating those Axum Rangers. Not to mention the final battle against Smithy in this game is horribly difficult, but it's fun.
They also had a secret boss thrown in there from Final Fantasy that was extremely difficult.
Yeah. I mean, well, because this this was a Square game, so yeah, a little cross-pollination there, and man, it just shines through that this was a legit studio with really good RPG chops that made this game. And just talking about it, I kind of want to go back and play this game and I don't know why. I guess it's because when you think Mario, you think platformer and not RPG. And the Paper Mario series and the Mario and Luigi series on the handhelds kind of took things over in recent years. Not enough people know about this Super Nintendo game, and it's just a shame because it's amazing.
Actually, is it on Virtual Console, Nick?
Yes, it is.
You guys should download it right now, then.
There you go. Everybody go download Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars.
The 12 of you with the Wii U.
Yes, all of the Wii U owners, maybe plural, out there. So guys, that leaves only one game left on my top 10 list. Anybody want to take a wager or guess?
Infinity.
Not Disney Infinity.
I have an idea, and I have a guess, and I don't know if I would say this is your favorite because of the gameplay or because of how much time you spent creating levels to play in it. But I just remember pretty much throughout like all of high school, this is, aside from other things you may play, this was the one game that you constantly played. Anytime I went over to your house, etc. And my guess is StarCraft.
Interesting. Nick, what do you think?
Well, I was actually thinking StarCraft as well, but the Brood War expansion version.
Oh, interesting. So I did not tack Brood War onto this for a couple of reasons that I won't get into, but I do love Brood War. But the original, just vanilla original StarCraft 1 from back in the 90s, yes, you would be correct, good sirs. StarCraft takes #1 on my top 10 games of all time list, and it is a little bit of a combination of what you said. The amount of time that I've spent with the game. I mentioned 80 hours with Skyrim to 100. One of the longest times I've ever spent playing one game. It's immeasurable how much time I spent playing StarCraft in my life, because that game came out at a time in my life where, I was still a kid, right? So I had lots and lots of free time. I even lived out of state with my dad and mom were in North Carolina, where my dad was working one summer, and that was about all there was to do. Was I would sit there and play StarCraft online over dial-up, and so I love this game because the single-player story is awesome, super super good science fiction story, and you'll notice that's a theme in my games of all time, is that if they have a great story, they're automatically kind of have a good chance of landing on the list. But not only that, the multiplayer, some of the most strategic, balanced, fun, just never gets old, never the same twice multiplayer I've ever played in any game ever. And StarCraft 2, for reasons I won't get into right now, didn't quite scratch that same itch for me. But the original StarCraft, just absolutely loved it. And then yeah, the other thing you mentioned was the customizability of the original StarCraft with that level editor that they put out with it. That really, if you took a little bit of time to learn it, you could be a game developer. That level editor for StarCraft was really one of the early borderline game development kits. You know, nowadays people get Unity and go build their own games. Well, the StarCraft level editor allowed a lot of people to do that because you had all the art assets in there. And they opened up every single thing that you could think to do with a map was on there. You could set triggers, so if a character walked across a certain point on the map, you could set that as a trigger to spawn enemies, display text on the screen, play a sound, whatever it was you wanted to do. And if you saw it done in the single-player campaign for StarCraft, and in some cases even if you didn't, you could make it happen via the level editor and a little bit of time and hard work. And I spent lots and lots of hours. I must have played hundreds of hours of StarCraft in my life. And some of that time went to building multiplayer levels and to making my own campaigns with their own stories. It was like the really, really, like, you think fan fiction is nerdy? Like, the even nerdier version of fan fiction is building your own StarCraft levels and writing the story into those for gameplay. And Clark, I think if I remember correctly, I would send you save files of the maps to play on your version of StarCraft from time to time.
You know, this, I'll tell you right now, Josh was kind of a jerk because he'd also, because sometimes I didn't know these were levels he made and stuff, but, you know, we'd play multiplayer, we'd play two-player on these maps, and no matter, like, a few minutes into the game, every time he's there killing me like crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he customized it to where he starts out with, you know, a lot more stuff, you know, but it wasn't set for use map settings is what they called for, you know, if you wanted to use the settings the map had. And so I was like, how is he finding me so fast? And then I realized, you know where all the spawn points are in these things. And I'm there, and like every time, you know, and I look at it, like, I'm always trapped in, like, some kind of thing where I need to fly my base out of in order to get out, and you're there, like, on high ground every time. But no, yeah, it's just the sheer amount of customization into that was astonishing.
Yeah, and you raise a good point there of the, like, regular multiplayer battle maps that you could go on Battle.net and play versus the use map settings maps, which were basically when someone put their own triggers or customizations to the map. You wanted the game to be a custom game and use those customizations. And people not only made campaigns that you could play single-player, multiplayer, but every other type of game was recreated in StarCraft. And
there were racing games.
There were racing games. There were what's that game? Smash TV. Smash TV was popular in StarCraft. There were MOBAs, and obviously MOBAs were later born out of Warcraft 3 in a way. And yeah, I mean, it's a weird phenomenon to me that people are playing a real-time strategy game, but man, let's just make a different type of game in it. Like, why not go play that other type of game? No, we're gonna make it in StarCraft, and it just clicked. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands of people who would just go online and say, hey, what's the latest new game we're playing inside of StarCraft today?
Yeah.
So I really think, yeah, and I would still, you know, have a lot of fun. I've played StarCraft 2, but I would still, even playing the original StarCraft, if I was going on Bloodbath 4v4 or the 4-player map Bloodbath, you know, either free for all or 2v2, man, I would just have so much fun if I was doing that right now. Just
I
thinking
was
about it.
actually about to ask you what your favorite multiplayer map was, and that was going to be my choice.
Bloodbath, absolutely
Yes.
Bloodbath, definitely, yeah. A lot of people were big Game Hunter fans with
I did
that
not
kind
like
of.
that one so much.
That was
Well,
the
it was too big, a little too hectic with 8 players. Yeah, it was that kind of octagonal map. But man, 4v4 player Bloodbath was so fun because you were forced to use your resources wisely because everybody had one little limited pool of resources and everybody had to cross through the middle of the map to reach each other.
You knew where they were going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you knew where your enemy was from the start because it was such a small map. Everybody's in a corner of the map, and so it was more about using your resources smartly and scouting without being seen, which is really hard to do on a small map. So
Now, if you played on that map 1v1, and you played as Zerg, I think that's one of those levels where Zerg Rush started, because if you found where the enemy base was quick, they had no time to protect against that rush.
that's one of those levels where SCV Rush started, sir. I've beaten several squishy Zergs with the SCV Rush on.
Yeah,
On
well, I mean, there's a 33% chance of that, being successful as long as you get to the right spot first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was part of it, certainly. Excellent. So that's my top 10 list. I'll run down them again really fast here. Honorable mention for Bastion, and then starting at number 10, working up to 1, Far Cry 3, Shadow Complex, Final Fantasy 7, Nox, Super Mario World, Mass Effect 2, Skyrim, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars, and StarCraft. So that's where we shake out this week. I'm looking really forward to hearing your guys' top 10 real soon. And then if anybody listening to the show wants to share their top 10 for us to talk about, you can email that to us at worldmapcast@gmail.com, and we'll talk about it a little bit on the show. So before we go this week, we do have a little section on this show where we don't talk about video games, believe it or not, and that section is called We Have Hobbies. And Nick, I believe you actually saw a new movie, relatively new movie anyway, this week.
Yeah, that'd be correct. I went ahead and decided to go see the new Terminator movie, Terminator Genisys. Just I've liked Terminator since the beginning. Of course, nothing's going to be better than Terminator Judgment, and I went into this movie knowing that. So, but after watching it, I really don't. There's not a lot I can talk about without ruining a bunch of stuff, because they really. I could say it's not as good as Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That's just a given. But it's better than Part 3 and 4. Hands down. In my personal opinion, I thought those two kind of really, they were entertaining, but they didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I thought it to be really enjoyable, and I think they've tried to reboot it, but yet address the old timeline and give it its own kind of timeline. And I think there's like 3 separate timeline setups going on in this movie. It gets kind of confusing. The first half, you may kind of be wondering, scratching your head, what's going on here? There's 2 Arnolds. What's this? They got young Arnold, middle-aged Arnold, old Arnold. There's actually 3, but there's only 2 on screen at a time. It's entertaining. I enjoyed it, and I don't really want to go into too much detail with that because I'd be busting up a bunch of the plots, and there is a major twist in it. And I can say, in your opinion, I'm assuming you've all seen the Terminators. What's the best Terminator? The best Terminator model.
Model.
The best model, T-1000.
The T-1000,
Yeah,
liquid
yeah.
metal.
Or, I mean, some people might argue and say the T-800 Model 101 is better simply because he was able to defeat the T-1000.
What's the coolest model?
The
I
T-1000.
would say the best model is probably the one that kills Neo.
I'm going to say the new Terminator model in this movie, he's pretty cool. He's on par with the T-1000. He's pretty awesome.
Interesting. Yeah, this is like a whole slew of that like category of slightly older action movies that I really need to catch up on because I've seen Terminator 1 and 2, nothing after that. And
Three.
then, like,
It was
like
very
Mad Max,
forgettable.
well, Mad Max Fury Road apparently is also amazing, and I've never seen any of the Mad Max movies either, so I feel like I need to go and run through all these.
I think Mel Gibson would be upset that you said that.
Yeah, well, he'd be more upset if I was Jewish, so
Well, that's because he's kind of a crazy guy.
yeah, he's a little bit of an idiot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see the hate in the face right there.
Oh, wait, what movie is that? Mad Max?
Mad Max, man.
Oh, you're holding up Mad Max?
It was just sitting here on my table. And I was
That's so weird. Oh man, excellent. Well, I do have one question before we go about Terminator Genisys. Does he come back?
Oh, he'll be back.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well, thanks everybody for listening this week and tuning in to our action-packed 10th episode, technically 11th episode. If you can go back there and find episode 0 on iTunes, back there in the back of the podcast list, good luck to you. And just keep on listening, man. We really appreciate it, to the guys and gals out there listening to the World Map Podcast each and every week. Give us feedback, questions, and comments at worldmapcast@gmail.com. Hey, even send us your top 10 games of all time, and maybe we'll see how it compares to ours and talk about it on the show. You can listen to the show live each week here on the Google Hangout on air, where you can participate in the live Q&A as well, and we'll talk to you. And that episode live gets archived on YouTube, so if you go search for the World Map Podcast on YouTube each week after the live show, you'll be able to rewatch the video. If you prefer to get your show on the go via iTunes or Stitcher, you can listen to the fully edited audio version of the podcast. Just go and subscribe and on your favorite podcast device. And, hey, take 5 seconds. Just give us a 5-star review. And you don't have to talk about how much you like the show in the review. Heck, you can talk about anything you want to in the review as long as you give us 5 stars. And it just takes a few minutes and really helps us out, helps spread the word about the show, and we really appreciate it. And in that same vein, tell a friend about the show, because that also helps us out, and we'd like to build the show and build a community around it and keep talking about all the awesome stuff that we talk about with you each week. And you can find us more information online at worldmapcast.com, which now includes all of our gaming network IDs on there if you want to find us and play with us online. We are at World Mapcast on Twitter, and we are also on Facebook, where you can give us a like at facebook.com/worldmapcast. Guys, any parting words before we head out?
no, I think you pretty much said it all there. Or not, and maybe I'm lying, and I do have parting words.
We'll never know. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, hey, thanks again, everybody, for listening, and until next time, we are Poppin' Smoke.